Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into Stryper's Honestly, the dual song of faith and love. We're going to explore how a pioneering Christian metal band, a band that boldly mixed big hair, tight spandex, and heavy metal with unapologetic faith, managed to achieve just massive mainstream success back in 1986. I mean, how did they break through the secular noise of the 1980s music scene and literally dominate the airwaves?
Well, that brings us to a seriously fascinating question. How did a Christian metal band write one of MTV's most requested romantic wedding anthems? On paper, it sounds like a total contradiction, right? But, that's exactly what happened with Stryper's power ballad, Honestly. It was a standout track off their multi-platinum album, To Hell with the Devil, and it became this absolute crossover phenomenon. It somehow managed to blur the lines between a Sunday morning church service and a Saturday night slow dance.
And the sheer scale of this success really starts with this incredible number, 23. Honestly, didn't just get some polite nods from the industry. It actually made history by peaking at number 23 on the Billboard Hot 100. Let that sink in for a second. In an era completely dominated by secular glam metal, this track proved it had massive, undeniable MTV credibility. It wasn't just a hit inside the Christian music bubble. It was a bona fide pop culture triumph, standing toe-to-toe with the biggest secular acts of the entire decade.
So, what was the secret sauce? It all comes down to what we call a dual meaning structure. Essentially, this is a multi-layered songwriting approach that allows a song to serve two completely distinct purposes, depending entirely on who is listening to it. Stryper's songwriter and frontman Michael Sweet didn't just stumble into this by accident. He utilized a genuinely genius technique, crafting lyrics that could be interpreted in two entirely different, yet equally powerful ways.
Let's break those down. The first way to interpret the track is through lens 1, the divine meaning. You have to remember, as a pioneering Christian band, Stryper's primary intent, first and foremost, was to write a dialogue between a believer and God. If you put on your spiritual lenses and read the lyrics from that specific perspective, the whole song reveals itself as this beautiful, soaring testament to faith, divine loyalty, and an ultimate surrender to a higher power.
Take the opening lines, for example. They perfectly frame this deeply personal, intimate relationship with the divine. It goes, "Honestly, I believe in you. Do you trust in me?" It's brilliant because it highlights human vulnerability, that questioning nature of faith, while simultaneously offering the profound reassurance of God's constant presence. It acts as a conversation, a plea, and an affirmation, all wrapped up into one simple phrase.
And this perfectly illustrates the biblical concept of agape love. When you hear lyrics like, "Patiently I will stand by you," and "Call on me and I'll be there for you," in a spiritual context, that reflects unconditional and enduring love. It's basically the promise of a creator who is always present the moment you call out. Looking at it this way completely elevates the track from a catchy melody into a really moving prayer of unwavering devotion. But here is where the magic really happens, and it brings us to lens 2, the human meaning. While that spiritual context was definitely the primary motivation for the band, this second lens allows the song to function flawlessly as a traditional romantic ballad. And this was absolutely crucial for reaching that mainstream MTV audience, an audience that, let's be honest, probably wasn't looking for a sermon on a Friday afternoon. So the key to unlocking this second lens was a very specific, highly intentional songwriting choice. There is zero explicit religious jargon in the song. Michael Sweet purposely crafted the lyrics without ever using words like Jesus or Lord. By just omitting those specific spiritual markers, the song instantly transforms. It becomes about human relationships, romantic transparency, and marriage. It allowed literally anyone, regardless of their background or belief system, to project their own romantic feelings right onto the lyrics.
And because of that beautifully ambiguous writing, Honestly became the ultimate wedding anthem. To the mainstream audience watching the music video on MTV, it was just a deeply heartfelt song about being completely transparent, loyal, and real with the person you love. And it worked. I mean, over the decades, thousands and thousands of couples have used it as their wedding dance song because they connected so deeply with that emotional core.
So the brilliance of it really comes down to this contrast. On one side, you have the divine meaning, right? A modern hymn of faith, a prayer of trust. But on the exact same track, you also have the human meaning, a timeless romantic commitment, a classic love letter. Both of these profound messages exist in the exact same lyrics simultaneously. Honestly, no pun intended, it is a true masterclass in songwriting versatility.
And if you want to know exactly what was going through the creator's mind, Michael Sweet himself summed it up perfectly in a 2011 interview. He said, It's a song about being honest with someone you love, but it also has a spiritual connotation because it's about trusting in God. He intentionally built a bridge between both audiences. He brought a message of love to the mainstream while staying 100% true to his spiritual roots.
Okay, so now that we understand the genius of the lyrics, let's shift gears and look at the musical blueprint of the hit. Let's slow down the pace for a second and talk about how the music perfectly mirrored that lyrical sincerity we just broke down. The instrumentation had to be, well, exactly right to support this delicate dual-meaning structure. If it was too aggressive or too metal, that vulnerability would be totally lost.
To pull this off, the band made some very specific sonic departures from their usual fast, heavy style. First off, they completely replaced their heavy, distorted thrash guitars with a really gentle synthesizer intro to set a reflective mood. Next, they layered in these lush, multi-part vocal harmonies to give it this massive, atmospheric feel. And finally, they anchored the whole thing with a soaring, incredibly emotional guitar solo by Oz Fox. Every single musical choice was calculated to build the emotional weight of the track.
And we absolutely cannot talk about this song without highlighting the vocal performance itself. Michael Sweet utilized this beautifully clean, almost operatic vocal delivery that totally set the track apart on the radio. He didn't rely on typical, aggressive metal growls. He sang with an incredible, soaring clarity. That precise vocal style is really what took the track from a simple, everyday love ballad and turned it into an epic, unforgettable declaration of devotion. So, to wrap up everything we've looked at today in this explainer, the true genius of Honestly comes down to one unbreakable message: absolute loyalty. Whether you interpret the song as a statement of religious faith or as a romantic vow to your partner, the song succeeded wildly because it never forced the message down your throat. It just simply, beautifully promised unbreakable loyalty. And that resonates with everyone.
It definitely makes you look at those old 80s Billboard charts a little differently, doesn't it? Which leaves us with this final thought. What other hit songs might be hiding a second meaning in plain sight? I highly encourage you to take a closer look at the layered songwriting in your own favorite mainstream hits. You know, you might just find a completely different story waiting to be heard. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.